Well, I'm happy to be on your show. Happy to join 102 FM. I think you're doing a great job. And of course, I know you, David, and your family. We know that from
Yes.
back in the day, as they say. And
Yeah.
the family, let me put it, the family. And of course,
Yes.
your listeners and viewers, pleased to be with you.
It's a pleasure all the time. Tell me, what's on the agenda? Richard said he'll be coming in a short while. Maybe you want to
Yeah,
start things off?
he gave me the agenda. I think let me start with the first thing because I tried to put my stuff in the order in which he had put it for me to discuss.
Oh,
So
okay.
the first thing that I think he wanted me to discuss is that whole um, Trump might call it a confuffle, and others may call it an imbroglio. But in any case, the issue with the impasse with the Attorney General and the head of the CPC, the Parliamentary Council,
Okay.
and so what we had agreed was one of the things was the change implications of the move of the AG from his position.
Hmm.
Well, let me just say, I mean, you can't get out of the politics with that because the Attorney General, as you know, is a political appointee, which of course causes a lot of tension in terms of what his duties and responsibilities are. So the key issue was that Mr. Ian McIntyre, a man of impeccable character, in fact, when I was Minister of Finance, so much legislation was being done at the time that we asked him. He was doing work as a consultant on other Caribbean islands, and he came in to help us with our legislation. Man of impeccable character, always pleasant, respectful. I have nothing but the best to say about him. So the issue really was that the Attorney General is the head of the Attorney General Legal Department. But apart from himself, all the persons in the Attorney General Legal Department, that is your Chief State Solicitor, your Solicitor General, your DPP, who's constitutionally protected, Legislative Drafting Department, and the Chief Parliamentary Council, all of them are appointed by the Judicial Legal Service Commission. He is the only political appointment. So the issue arose that he was, my understanding, sending bills to be drafted without the requisite cabinet note or cabinet minute. And he seemed to be of the view that he, as Attorney General, was constitutionally entitled to do that, and that the Mr. McIntyre failing to draft the bill without a note from cabinet was being insubordinate. So the whole thing came to a head when it seemed as though Mr. McIntyre was being threatened with disciplinary proceedings. So he took in front, as they say, wrote to the Judicial Legal Service Commission complaining of the issue, and Mr. Attorney General on the 16th of March, I believe unbeknownst to him, was removed out of the AG's department to another ministry. So if you want to ask me, I would like to expect, I would expect. I don't think it's such a difficult issue for the Prime Minister to have to resolve, which is why I think he took in front. And the reason for that is, well, among reasons, is that the Constitution itself sets out the executive under Section 75. And it says that you must have a prime minister and you must have an attorney general. And someone will say, well, if you have to have an attorney general, that's how important he is. Well, it's important for this reason. As you know, David, you're part of a party. If your party comes and wants to has policies of its own, in order to turn those policies into law and become enforceable, you've got to take it to Parliament and make it law. And the office charged with that responsibility is that of the Attorney General's Department. So, and if you had any doubt that that was so, when I was in cabinet, and I imagine it continues to be so, when a note is going to be sent, when a ministry has a policy that they want to introduce and they come with all their, information, etc. And finally, at the end of the note, it ends with a request. The word is request for the Attorney General to have a bill prepared. Now, once the note has gone through all the criticism, critiques, and so on, and it's confirmed by cabinet minute, the instruction is now, it directs the Attorney General to have the bill prepared. So Mr. McIntyre understandably said, well, where's the note? And he is right, because let me just go to section two things, which confirm in my mind that there's not even a question of tradition. two things that confirm it in my mind. Section 771 or 72 says that there shall be a cabinet for Trinidad and Tobago, and they shall be responsible for the state affairs of the country, for which they are all collectively responsible to Parliament, therefore. So the whole concept of collective responsibility, not a one-man show. So that is one reason. And another reason, which I think also supports it, is if your viewers and listeners went to the parliamentary website, they set out the process for making a bill. And the only part I want to emphasize is this, that when the minister is satisfied that he's ready for the bill to go to Parliament, it says that the Attorney General must, not may, must get cabinet approval before he takes that bill to Parliament, must. So you have the parliamentary website making it abundantly clear, no minister can take another minister's portfolio, whether it's national security or agriculture, and then decide that he has the authority. He is part of a cabinet, and the cabinet acts collectively. So I think that the Prime Minister, in my view, knew that it was a fight he could not win. One, because the law seemed to me to be pretty clear. In fact, in England, because of this tension between the rule, which is where you have someone being a legal advisor to the crown, so you have a political appointment, and over time becoming an advisor to the people, it created a natural tension, which is where the AG is. He's both advisor to the government and protector of the people's interest, but he's a political appointee and he's a minister of cabinet. And England sought to address that tension, that duality, by removing the Attorney General as a minister. He's no longer, that she is actually she's not a minister, nor is she a member of the cabinet. So, and that is for that reason, so that when a note, something comes to the AG, it comes with him with, how it goes to the Privy Council without any previous views. And given a recusal from a minister of cabinet, that is the Attorney General, which is said about 47 recusals, you recuse yourself because you have an interest in a note that is before the cabinet. So I think that is one. And secondly, the Prime Minister could not politicize it because it had nothing to do with the UNC. It had nothing to do with their interference with anything. It had everything to do with a gentleman called Mr. Ian McIntyre, who has the complete respect of his department, who would not draft the legislation because they agreed with him and they respected him. And he looked at Mr. McIntyre's CV. He's a national scholar. I mean, he's brilliant. He's apolitical. He's not involved in politics. He's respectful. So you can't politicize it. You can't bring in Kamala or whoever into the story. And that AG has made so many missteps, which I have not spoken about, but it was recorded in one of the newspapers, one after the other. So the Prime Minister took in front and said, you know what? The only thing I could do is take him out. And for reasons best known to the Prime Minister, he wanted him to stay in. So he moved him across to local government. But that is clearly, in my view and in anybody's view, no matter what they say about equality of ministers and all of that stuff, it's, the reality is that it is looked at as a demotion.
Richard just joined us there. Good afternoon, Richard.
How are you, Daddy Mac?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Is this
How
Paul
are
Richard
you,
I'm
Mrs.
speaking
Teshiera?
to?
No, this is Richard Noray.
Well, I wished one day I will get to Paul Richard would join us. Mr. Noray, are you in a position for me to see you, or is it like last week?
No, in about 5 minutes,
Okay.
time, because I'm heading to a place where I'll be able to pawn the laptop. So in about 5 minutes.
No more details, but that is really the one main issue that he asked me to address. And I think for your viewers, it's Section 75 of the Constitution. It's the website of the Trinidad Parliament. And between the two of them, the persons involved, the characters involved, and the fact that in the United States, in the UK, they recognize that tension, that duality. And he's not a minister of cabinet, he's not a minister. And that is how that in fact may be one of the recommendations that might come from the team that have been retained to advise the Prime Minister on the matter. But he didn't fight it, he kept quiet. And I think Faris Al-Wari knew it was, he was on a slippery slope. So he took his beating quietly and smiled all the way, which,
But
but
Mr. Sheriff,
politician.
could he have fought that?
How would he fight that? Who is he going to fight? That's the thing about our
But no, well, this is it.
constitution.
You say he took his licks quietly, and in this situation, there's no other meaningful way to go about it but to accept your licks.
Right. Well, some people don't realize that. Some people, and I like Robert Luhunt, and I also like Faris because I taught Faris, and he was as charming as he is today. He was as charming as that when he was a student. I have to say, there's no change in his personality now because he's in the public eye. He's turned on the charm. He's always been like that. I will say that it is, and I enjoyed a good relationship with him. So all of what I'm saying is absolutely not personal. In fact, it's unfortunate that I have to say that. But some people don't take it that easily. Some people think that if their constituency is supported, and they don't understand party politics. So you could have fought back by way and saying this is unfair and try to, have a little bit. I mean, you probably may have felt that way in the first place, but good sense prevailed, because once you trying to fight the establishment of a party, whether it is the PNM UNC, no matter how individually persons may support you, at the end of the day, I'm not saying that's true now, but Eric Williams said you could put a Tyrone crap on a boot for him. Okay, that's an extreme thing, but it tells you the level of party loyalty. So if you are not part of the party, you cannot go up on the party ticket. You out. There are examples of that right now. Robert Luhunt, unless on the next go round they decide, say, okay, we punish you enough, you do a good boy, at the end of the day, come back in, then you stand a chance. So like Mariano, Mariano's, I mean, I'm not personal with this, so in order to be able to stand a chance of, even challenging at the end, because Rawi did challenge Mr. Manning at one time, remember, it was unsuccessful, but he did challenge him for the leadership of the party when they lost elections. So
95, 96.
There we go. And so you must understand, it's not a playground. It's not a group of Boy Scouts, although Boy Scouts have a bad name now. You have to understand a lot of people who are in that cabinet, as when I was there, were people who may not have liked Mr. Manning very much at all. But he was the boss because of the constitutional authority. He appoints and he disappoints. He makes you a senator, he removes you as a senator. You don't have any say to his cabinet. And unlike private sector, where you might have to take a vote to determine this sort of the democracy, there's no democracy there. And they all know it. And when you got out and when you are thrown out, I could tell you, not necessarily from my experience, because I moved quickly to avoid being put in that position, but I saw many of my former colleagues go through hell. I mean, blacklisted, could not find a job, had to leave the country. People, I've experienced this personally, people who were your good friends talk to you well, they will look right through you because apparently you become persona non grata. So he understands that. His mother, Diane Supran, was in politics. He understands what it means. You can't, some fights you don't fight that way. You have to find another way to bell the cat. And that, what he did was what he had to do. Hello?
Yes.
I lost you all. No. That is the reality. I mean, I was in cabinet and I understand. I really do think I understand that. I think I do understand that. And I think he's smarter than that. And the Prime Minister did not want to have him out for whatever reason. You could guess for yourself. He did not want to have him, and he was heading in that direction. Yet there was so many bad advice, because at the end of the day, even if you give a consultant to give the AG advice, at the end of the day, the Attorney General is the one who finally says it is good or bad. You had the whole thing with the mandatory vaccination. It quietly disappeared into the Netherlands. Then the whole issue about the Prime Minister, and on each of these occasions, the Prime Minister spoke out very boldly and confidently. Yes, we can go into your house and we can arrest you. And of course, the public health regulations gave him no authority. And then when they asked, finally found out who did the advice, I mean, the advice just fell apart. So, I mean, to be very fair, very fair. I mean, you know, he's done so many mistakes. And then of course the issue with that young man, Schoon. I mean, you know, he made himself look so bad. I mean, you know, it just looks so, you know, it affected so poorly on him. And then with the children on the range and all the other ministers, AGs from different parties, John Jeremy, Anand Ramlogan, and I think Nicholas, what I can't remember the last name, sorry. All Gavin Nicholas said, no, we never got that training for our family. I mean, you know, and 47 times you're recusing yourself, and then the $23 million deal for the office, which in fairness to him, the UNC was looking at.
Rent per year.
Huh? What's that?
Rent. You're talking about the $23 million
yes,
in rent?
Yes, yeah, but in fairness, in 20, before 2015, in fairness, I did read that the UNC, they were looking at renting that building, and it may not have been the same, but then money may not have been worth the same. So I just want to put on a record, it was not just the PNM that had showed an interest, the UNC did, but the PNM actually rented it. So I just want to make that clear, that is what my understanding is. But the bottom line is, I don't think he was up to the job. And people, if you don't have confidence in your Attorney General, and I think the Prime Minister, unfortunately, probably got enough whispers in his ears. And he's just surrounded by a lot of lawyers himself, and brilliant lawyers too. So I think at the end of the day, you know, this was the last straw. It couldn't fly. So there he had to go. And he took it, and he had to take it, or he took it. I mean, what's he going to do? Pout his face up? Then you'll end up like I am, no offense, Robert Lejean, because I like Robert Lehunt, I like you, but you know, that's what they want to see you. You know, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. I sorry. That's the name of the game.
What about the issue? Yeah, what about the issue of transfer? What about the issue of transferring problems? You said that, you know, for some reason the Prime Minister saw it fit to keep the Attorney General. Yeah? And of course, it is the Prime Minister's discretion to do that. But if you saw him with all those things that you outlined, the rent, the range with the children, and the school matter and all those things, wouldn't those same things go across to the ministry that he's in now?
But on the other ministers for whom there are questions that have yet to be answered that are still in his cabinet, the transfer in cash, which up to now has not been properly explained. And with Marlene McDonald, it took three times before he had to finally, and I think that's not only him, I think with, if I may say so, when Kamala had to remove Warner and Anand Ramlogan, she was, I picked it up that she was angry, but she had no other choice. But he had not done anything that was illegal or anything that was criminal. So the question was, he a good fit for that ministry? So not because you're not a good fit for a ministry does not mean that you are not a good fit for another ministry. He might be a very good fit for local government in the process of reform, decentralizing, giving more power to the councillors, giving more power to the aldermen, setting up a structure that allows each, whether it is the borough or the regional corporate, all the municipalities, the city, all the municipalities, as they now call, to collect their fees and increase their fees for whether cremation, maintenance of cemeteries, etc., etc., etc. And he was a good choice as an MP. He was liked. I think you want someone who people like, and he is very likable and very charming. So maybe he was a better fit there. So it doesn't mean because he's not a good AG, which apparently they would, you know. But, well, there may be the view that he wasn't, and not without reason. It doesn't mean that he can't be a very good minister of local government. So I'm not going to say because he's not a good fit there, he probably, sometimes when, this is not in this case, you know, I don't want anybody quoting me and saying, I said this, I'm just drawing by example. Sometimes when you want to get rid of someone in your organization, And that is not the case here. It is not the case here. They could put you in a thing where they know that you're not going to be able to measure up, and that's the kind of thing. But in this case, that's not the case. The case is that he thought, I think, that with his personality, his understanding, and being his mother was in PNM government for years, they understand politics, and local government is about the man in the street and the drains and the pavement and the holes in the road and all of that. So we'll see. But it is a demotion. It is a demotion, though. And it's embarrassing.
Yeah, in that regard, we'll definitely have to wait and see what happens, But I will think if part of the reason for moving someone is that, the talking points surrounding this person, they are just too many. And if you know what I mean, keeping this person because there's so many issues surrounding the person, shifting him from one place to the next, but only shift the conversation across it. So I will think it was purely his performance as the Attorney General.
No, I don't agree with that at all, because there's one of the things a Prime Minister has to do is he has to make a determination, and really and truly you're all on probation in a way. If you're new, he has to make a determination of the persons who want their seats, because that should get priority in terms of cabinet appointments, and whether as a minister or a minister in, that he has to make an assessment of where best the person could fit. Now, it may be all kinds of considerations. It may be in the case of Faisal Rawi to give him the post of Attorney General, was that is, that and Ministry of Finance, you're the top of the game, and Ministry of Energy also. So it may be that he felt he could have done it. I think he has a law firm. Maybe he felt he could have done it. That doesn't mean you move him out, you move him across. Now, if having moved him across, you're getting complaints and things haven't changed, but then there's another dialogue. But I don't think that it's automatic. I don't think there has been any scandal in relation to him regarding fraud. What you might want to say is maybe people might argue incompetence and not being exactly, handling the truth a little carelessly more than he should have. But he's not alone in that regard. Politicians are known for the art of doing that. And, so it's too early to tell, but he didn't want him out. And is your guess as good as mine? And we can all guess why they would not want him out. And I'm not going to say it on because I have been quoted by the Prime Minister saying things that I didn't say. So I don't want to add to that. I was also just talk about the state of the economy. That was the other talking point. If you wanted to know why Richard didn't tell you what he wanted me to speak about. He said, we talked about the move of the Attorney General, which is, I think something that might come out of it is that maybe the lawyers looking at it might even recommend that they take a step like what they do in England, because really and truly, it's really unfair in a way to have this person supposedly looking after the interests of the people, but be a member of cabinet, sitting in cabinet here and all of it, and being appointed politically. It's kind of hard for him or her to be able to hold both the scales of justice equally. So that's why they made the recommendation in England. So you don't know what will come out of this whole brouhaha. But what he'd asked me to look at the state of the economy and I guess the gas prices and all of that good stuff. I don't know if you want any more questions on Mr. Faisal Rawi. I think give him a chance.
No, I was only following. I was only following you, Mr.
Oh, so you're not taking any responsibility?
No, I was merely following you, Mr. No,
what do you mean merely? In what? Can I ask in what mere way you were doing that?
No, I was following you up based on what you asked. Yes, there we are. Based on what you asked, I felt that, hey, it's necessary for us to follow through on some of the things that you might have said earlier on in relation to Faisal Rawi. And if the thinking was he was a problem here, then logical reasoning could tell you equally it may be a problem across here too. But I take your point.
You take my point. The point being that may not be
board in one
competent in
minister
that job.
could be very good or maybe very good. And as they say, they're all on trial.
Exactly, and
trial
may
so
not be.
nothing is confirmed.
Exactly, and don't you know that's why you have cabinet reshuffles? Cabinet reshuffles
Yes.
may not always be, well, it probably has a lot to do with that, but it's not always because, and there's a lot of things that, listen, another thing you have to bear in mind, when you are running a country, and in a country like Trinidad that is so complex, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, or it's so complex in so many ways, one of the things that the government has to strive all the time to do, which I don't know if they've succeeded at all, is having the confidence of the people. So for him to have fired Rawi, it's like people who working in banks at senior position. They did something wrong. Well, we could fire or you resign. In the case of Rawi, either he didn't, I don't think it was that he did something wrong. It's just that he's not a good fit for that job. And he moved him out because that was the only thing. He could not leave him there. He could not leave him there as Attorney General. That was for sure.
And I think, as you have said, or at least implied, I think most other people felt that the decision was a good decision.
Yes, I think so. And apparently so does he.
Yeah. I suspect he was happy with the decision himself. I think Al-Wali himself was happy with the decision too.
No, not at all.
No, I think Al-Wali said he was ecstatic.
No. I was in cabinet once, and I can tell you, he's not happy. He strikes me as a person with daunting ambition. And whilst Colin Imbut may have that same, he's too old now. So the only competition he has, you see, a senior, the only real competition he has is Stuart Young. And I don't think he wanted to move away from those top-notch positions. So he's just doing a good job of pretending to be happy.
I see.
Just like Will Smith, and Will Smith pretending he doesn't mind they ban him for 10 years.
But human beings. That is part of the normal process. And I think it is part of the process of readjusting to your new situation. Correct. So, and while you're going through that process, you had to say something as a well-known, popular person. So as you try to communicate how you are adjusting, you have to put up this front, that I'm happy.
Exactly. You know how many people, listen, you know how many people, even within his own cabinet, who have equal ambition like he does, were looking to see him take it hard? He's not stupid. Yeah. He's a politician. Yeah. He's a politician. Yeah. Anyway, Paris Rawi, you were one of my students. You were always very charming. I liked you. But, I think it was the right decision.
Well, I know you'd be sad to hear that from his former lecturer, said it was the right decision. I mean, well, you should
take him elsewhere where he can be better used.
You should be saying, no, my student was one of the best for the job. Why you move my student? Once they were educated.
Let's talk about AG Amour.
Let's go to AG. All right, that's a nice way to maneuver. I appreciate that. So let's maneuver. Yeah. What you expect Mr. Amour would do that Mr. Al-Wari was perhaps coming short in?
Oh, gosh. I mean, the reality is that a lot of our attorneys general, with some exceptions, but I could think of some that had the highest respect and regard of the ministry and of the people. They may not like them necessarily, but they knew they were. Martineau was one of them. Martineau was one of the best attorneys general that we had. And of course, Reginald Amour did not earn a senior counsel by virtue of a position in government. I know Reggie, I'm being disrespectful. I know the Attorney General since back in the day, and he has always been that same approachable, pleasant, charming, easygoing person. I've never seen him. I have never ever seen him, and I've known him years. He has been the president of the Law Association. He has been president of the Council of Legal Education. I think he enjoys a good relationship with the bar, and I think more so, people have respect for him. So that when you ask for a brief to be done or opinion to be done, I think if he says it's okay, even if it ends up not being okay, we have the confidence in him. And he's just a really good choice. He's just a very, very good choice. If you have, a lot of people don't want to go into politics. They know what politics does to your reputation. Then your law firm suffers because of that. So it's not an easy decision. People sit down there and, he's reached a stage in his life where he has achieved a lot on the strength of his own ability. So I think he's giving service to his country. I really do think so. And I think it was a very good choice on the part of the Prime Minister to put him there, because there's no question he has the skills and he has the personality that inspires confidence. And he does not come across as arrogant. He comes across approachable. He does not come across like, watch me now. I don't see anybody does that, eh? Look me now. I didn't say anybody, but he does not come across as very much into how he looks and thing. He doesn't look, not that he doesn't look good. By the way, don't want to get in his bad books.
But I must say, thank you for doing what you just did. You did it quite nicely.
What is that?
Look at me
What
now.
is that? Huh?
When you were saying, look at me. You did that quite nicely. I mean, but what you're saying
Richard,
yeah.
I want to tell you something. I could genuinely say, because I had taught at the law school for about 20 years,
Yeah.
And then I went to the faculty of law for about 4 years. So I have taught so many people who have reached high positions in this country. And, when I did this like that, he was always like that. He was just type of person. He was always polished. I mean, I was, even as a student, most students come to school with their slippers and but it wasn't as though showing off or anything. So, it was just who he was. And he was always so gracious, always, I have to say. But he was not in the right place.
You really capture that? He was professionally laid back. He never liked to be, he was professionally laid back in school. Just pleasant, doing what he had to do, never trying to capture the limelight.
No, I can't say that. There are some students stand out in your memory for different reasons. Some because oh my God, they get students from hell.
Right.
Then there are students who you see, wow, they are brilliant, and they are far to go. And then there are some students might stand out because they stand out. Maybe and it might be a good reason, but not unnecessary academic.
Can I ask you? And I mean disrespectfully, you said Faris was always charismatic. You just give 3 categories. Which one you would have fitted? Was it because he was charismatic, or
I think he was. I think I can't. No. The way the system is set up, unless he was in my tutorial, I wouldn't get that chance to make that assessment. So honestly, I can't make that assessment. But what I can say about him is that he was always charming, and I always felt he was very ambitious. I always felt he gave the impression that he wasn't, that's why I know he took it well, because he knows he always looked, he gave the impression just as though, but you could look at him and see ambition written all over it, which is not a bad thing. A lot of lawyers, Obama, Clinton, a lot of lawyers become prime ministers. So it's not a bad thing. And he came from Lionel Sukaran, was his grandfather. Diane Sukaran was his mother. So he came from a family of politicians. And that I read in him. I read in him that he had that ambition, but he never showed it obviously at all. He was always very, always respectful.
I see. Okay.
Okay, so can we leave him alone now? Can we?
Yes. So go back to Mr. Alone, yes, Mr. Amour. So he was you say he was never a person trying to attract the limelight and that type of thing. Very solid guy. That's what
very solid.
Very solid. All right, and you expect that is what he will bring to the office of the Attorney General?
Sure. Look, even when they wanted to start this whole bacchanal about him being Dominican and so on, I went and looked at the Citizenship Act really, and I looked at the Constitution myself, and I said, because he was so quietly confident that he didn't have a point. And I understood why, because once you are born in a particular country, as he was in Dominica, we don't swear oath of allegiance when we become 18 if we're born in Trinidad. But if you get your citizenship by naturalization, by registration, by other means, one of the things that is required is that you swear an oath of allegiance. And you can't swear an oath of allegiance to two countries. That's what I understood. So I think, now I don't have anybody this was my assessment. Since he had not had to swear an oath of allegiance to the country in which he was born, the only oath of allegiance he swore was once, and that was in Trinidad as required by the law. So it was no conflict. Like, for instance, with of course, I don't like to be disrespectful to people, but like John LeHunt, he was born in Trinidad, so he swore oath of allegiance to become a citizen in Ghana. But he could not now come to Trinidad and swear an oath of allegiance to Trinidad when he had sworn an oath of allegiance to Ghana. You can't because you owe
and
the
that's why
loyalty to your country.
they had to put on
Right.
pause so that he could have go and disconnect himself from Ghana.
Okay, so that's the difference. And even with Gypsy, although it's not his name, but Gypsy forget me. Right. He also found himself in a similar situation, because once you get your citizenship not by birth, you are going to at some point in time swear an oath of allegiance. Right? So you can't have an oath to that country and an oath to this country, because you cannot be a senator unless you swear the oath of allegiance to Trinidad and Tobago. And I
think Mr. Amour understood that fully. So all the commentary surrounding it, he was quietly confident.
Right, and that is what I'm trying to say. No, I listen, he didn't, I went and researched it, and I said, oh, I found he was so cool and calm and collected about it. I knew he was on good front, but you see, look at the difference. He did not make a big brouhaha about it. He went about his business quietly, and I'm quite sure had he been asked directly, he would have, in a very pleasant, matter-of-fact way, explained it to the public. And that would be the end of that. He would bring it to end. Look, nobody even talks about it. That's the kind of person he is. He's getting about doing the people's business.
But could it have been interpreted when that came up and the opposition MPs are the ones who were leading the charge? Wasn't that normal politics? I suspect they knew that too.
Well, they want to make fools of themselves?
No, because they do believe that if you could try to highlight that the government made an error, now they would know when they highlight the problem, more people may listen to the problem than the solution or the accuracy or the truism that would follow later on. So in their mind...
Okay. I will say I will agree with that theory in general on other issues, but this was a black and white issue, and it really made the opposition look foolish. It really did, in my mind, because you come out, with fighting, and you made a fool of yourself, because what it said to me is you clearly did not do your research to come out and say nonsense. As they say, as a lawyer, don't ever ask a question you don't know the answer to, right? And there's one thing to stir up trouble with other issues where it's gray areas and hard to prove thing, but that thing is in the Citizenship Act as well as the Constitution. It's as straight as that. And it made them look foolish in my mind, because at one point in time I said, why would they do something like that unless there was a point? And then I looked at it and I said, oh my God, no wonder he didn't take them on.
There has never been a party in this country, as far as I could recall, in politics, and I know my period of calling be very long, but I've read what transpired before my active participation in the political arena of our country. But since I'm involved, I have never seen a political party that had within it so many lawyers. How was it possible with so many lawyers the UNC has within it? They got that wrong.
Because, it's like a doctor. If I may make an example, not all doctors are neurosurgeons, not all doctors are psychiatrists, even lawyers. Not all lawyers are experts on constitutional law. If I have a constitutional problem, I am not going to go to a lawyer that does family law matters, right? Because they don't do it often. They have
specialize in family matters. Yeah.
So you go to and that's why he's well placed, because he's done a lot of matters in which the government has been involved. So he must be very well, cognizant of the laws, in terms of public law and all of that. So I think it was, and the thing, it was a good decision, a very good decision on the part of the Prime Minister. And I think that he did Mr. Faris Alwari a favor, and I wish Mr. Faris Alwari the best. But let's see what happens.
We said we were going to leave Faris alone.
Okay. So what are we going to talk about the economy?
Let's leave Faris alone. It's hard to get away from.
You want to make it. I'm following you. Story.
What's that?
Okay. Yes, we're going to the economy. How would I rate it? Is that what you're going to ask me?
No, you go on.
No, you go ahead, because I want to know what you are thinking.
No, I think the question you thought I was going to ask you was a better question. I intended to ask you. Ask your question and I'll ask you to answer that one.
You're sounding like my grandson. My grandson wants to know my age so badly. So every time he asks me, I says I'm 1 year older than I was last year.
Listen, I have to interject here for the 5 o'clock news, and we'll continue the talk on the economy and the other stuff.
I can tell you look like about 43. More than 43.
Every time, my brother,
look at me. How
old are you?
I saw 37 when you were doing that. Come on.
Every minute that little boy saying,
we'll come back with the very beautiful Miss Karen.
Let's go with the economy and what the problems are, because I do have some few thoughts on it.
Okay, sure.
We'll be back, folks, on the other side of the news and our power play at 5. Yeah.
Power 102 Digital.
Yeah.
We sound like home. Power 102 Digital. Streaming 24/7 on power102fm.com and on the Power 102 Digital app. Power 102 Digital. This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
With your news to 5 p.m. here on Power 102, I'm Sparkle McIntosh. Good afternoon. Head of the Route 2 Maxi Taxi Association, Linus Phillip, is calling on members of the public not to get too anxious with the news of a possible fare increase. He made the comment in response to a newspaper article that says there could be panic, that he says could cause panic amongst travelers. Speaking with News Power Now, he cited a newspaper article today which quoted him as saying that the association would meet to discuss a price increase. The Oilfield Workers Trade Union is to make an official statement on the planned fuel increase announced by the Finance Minister in the Parliament on Friday. The OWTU is to host a press conference at its San Fernando office tomorrow morning. It will be led by President General Ansel Roger. The Ministry of Health has recorded 3 additional COVID-19 related fatalities. This takes the total number of deaths since the start of the pandemic in Trinidad and Tobago to 3,783. In its latest clinical update, the ministry also reported 125 new positive cases of the virus. Currently, there are 6,146 active positive cases of COVID-19 locally, of which 149 have been hospitalized. The Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines, has given the assurance that the Ministry of National Security will continue to lend support to the Trinidad and Tobago Cadet Force in keeping with the government's thrust to see more young people engaging in meaningful and positive lifestyles. He was speaking at the opening ceremony of the Operation Recovery Training Camp of the Trinidad and Tobago Cadet Force's potential non-commissioned officer cadre held at the weekend. Minister Hines stated that organizations like the Cadet Force have a major role to play in the building and shaping of society. He recognized the value of youth-oriented programs in developing the nation's youth. The minister took the opportunity to welcome the Cadet Force back into action after a 2-year hiatus owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines Parliament has given the green light to amend the Marriage Act as government moves to take advantage of the growing market for wedding destinations. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves told legislators that his administration had moved to amend the Marriage Act to make it possible for persons to tie the knot after being at the destination for just 1 day, joining Caribbean destinations like St. Lucia, Antigua and Grenada. Prime Minister Gonsalves said that if the island is to take advantage of the growing market for wedding destinations, it is important that the government puts the institutional arrangements in place. A murder charge against a 26-year-old woman who was arrested for a self-induced abortion has been dropped, a prosecutor in the U.S. state of Texas has said. Lizelle Herrera spent 3 days in jail after allegedly causing the death of an individual via abortion. But on Sunday, Starr County District Attorney Gocha Allen Ramirez said it was clear that Ms. Herrera could not be prosecuted under Texas law. Last year, Texas barred abortions as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy. However, it is still unclear whether Ms. Herrera was accused of having an abortion, assisting someone else with an abortion, or how far along the pregnancy had been. Texas law exempts pregnant women from being charged with murder in connection of the death of an unborn child. I'm Sparkle McIntosh, and those were some of the stories making the news to this time here on Power 102.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital. The Afternoon Power Drive, weekdays from 4 p.m. on Power 102 Digital.
Do you need to get work done on your vehicle? Look no further than the Auto Champions, Champlain Auto Services. From vehicle inspection to shutdown service, they do it all. Champlain Auto Services, great mechanics and technicians, exceptional customer service with accessories galore. Champlain Auto Services is your one-stop shop. They are your Auto Champions. You name it, they can fix it. Champlain Auto Services, Eastern Main Road, opposite Carib. Call 662-6545 and like us on Facebook. Champlain Auto Services. We do it all.
Escape the city and conduct your meetings and business activities at the Cascadia. Our modern conference rooms are the ideal space to facilitate innovative and productive meetings. Corporate packages include spacious conference rooms, Wi-Fi, food and drinks, and meeting equipment. The way we conduct business is changing, and we at Cascadia understand your changing business needs. Contact us to discuss your package. 623-3518 or 798-5730 or email marketing@cascadiahotel.com.
As I run through the day, there's one thing that I need to make new memories and nutrition to grow. My kiss enriched bread, the best taste that I know. Fill your day with love, we deliver the best for you. All across the nation to make your moments feel new. Fill your day with love, we bake the best bread for you. A taste of inspiration to make those dreams come true.
Kiss enriched bread.
Fill your day with love.
It's Power Play for this hour. For the love of money, the OJs. So let's continue. Richard, are you there with me?
Good. We couldn't request a better intro. The economy is all about money, economic value.
Yes, it is.
So let's jump into that.
Yes.
So I raised last time, and you gave us such a thorough explanation, which was the gas subsidy. It was not removed, or the subsidies, they weren't removed from the various type of fuel, from super premium diesel. The last time when it was said that was going to be removed, and although they said it, you said they didn't do it, but nonetheless they increased the prices of fuel. That part was not explained. The government just went ahead and raised it anyway. Now they decide that they're going to kind of make an adjustment by removing the subsidy in part. They have started increasing fuel prices again. The net resulting effect of that is that the small man, or all persons in the economy, but the small man would of course suffer the impact worse than anybody else, because nobody's going to pay more for taxi fares. Headline inflation going to go all over the place. That's going to, really trouble their disposable income. They're going to be in a serious spot of bother. How you react to this new measure, economists, Ms. Teshiera?
Well, I'm not an economist, but I think the
No, you
difference
come
may have
across
been-
as one. I took the liberty to do that.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. But I would say the difference this time is that it was some regulation which they now have enacted will bring into force as of the 19th of April, I believe. So it has the force of law in this thing. I'm not so sure about the other increases that would have been done when the budgets were read. And I think when you making your budget presentation at the end of it, the Appropriation Act, that's when those increases would have, that you're talking about, would have been included. But this one is directly connected to the fuel subsidy. But what I want to say is that, you know, at the end of the day, and I think someone made a good point on this, it's kicking the can down the road. $1, I think the government is testing the waters, pushing the envelope to see how much the people will accept. And therefore, they start with this dollar in drips and drabs, and then slowly but slowly increase that fuel subsidy. The problem is that the government has failed to address the issues that affect the small and medium enterprise, and to leave them in a condition that is not only unemployment, but underemployment, because the CSO, Central Bank, in its January bulletin said that the unemployment rate was 7.6%, but they have no real way of calculating that because they rely on advertisements, they rely on the rate of retrenchment, but they don't have a National Statistical Institute that which can give them reliable data. Also, when you're talking about employment, it has a specific definition, which means looking actively for a job within a specified period. So I suspect that when we are looking at employment, the employment rate not only is high, but also the underemployment. And why do I say underemployment? Many of our young people, are working in franchises, in fly-by-night security firms, involving themselves in all kinds of nefarious activity in order to offset the cost of living, because their salaries simply cannot feed a family, even if you have one child. You're looking at the rate of inflation. The rate of inflation is 3.6%. In America, it's 7.6%. Now, you might say to yourself, oh, that's a good thing. I mean, 3.6%. Well, a low rate of inflation, as opposed to a high rate, can sometimes be an indicator that the economy is sluggish. It's an indicator that there's too much supply and little demand. It is an indicator of a lack of confidence in the economy, unwillingness to spend, banks' unwillingness to lend. And you can see that by way of, for example, the repo rate of the central bank was 5% some years ago. He's left it at 3.5, whereas it has raised in America. Also, the reserve requirements that banks have to maintain with the central bank a certain amount of money to cover certain liabilities, a certain percentage of the liabilities. The percentage hasn't changed, but the figures have also changed. So when you look at the underemployment, the unemployment, and what they call employment, the European CPEP, that can't mind anybody's child, that can't mind anyone. And the other major thing, of course, is the debt to GDP. Yes, the minister is correct. And unfortunately, the reason that he's correct is also very unfortunate, because the debt to GDP will go down. The fiscal deficit, that is the difference between your revenue and your expenditure, the difference in it. That is what it really is when they say fiscal deficit for that particular year, what it is. Yes, should go down because the price of oil and gas have gone up. And even though initially the signs were that the production was not going to, we got giving up production, you know, one day, it is amazing what can happen in one day. So I'm sure you're following this thing. For example, for your viewers and listeners, I don't know if people recognize that Russia produces about 43% of the global oil. Russia is responsible for 38% of the natural gas, even as the war rages for the European Union, especially France, Italy, Germany. And with all the war that is going on, they still need that natural gas. So you can fool yourself, the days of natural gas, that is what Ukraine, Russia, special operations highlighted. That with all the talk about green energy, which is where we will be going, because I don't think the European Union like the idea that they are dependent on an external source for their energy. But the days of natural gas are far from over. Shell, who had been signaling that they were kind to come out because their shareholders wanted them out of the business, have now said, well, they stopped their drilling activity because of technical difficulties. No, supply and demand. You have President Biden referring to Maduro as President Maduro, and he had to pull it back because Americans got so angry. He has given instructions for 1 million barrels of oil to be released every single day from their inventory for the next 6 months. I mean, all the indicators are there that the days of natural gas and the days of oil, especially the light sweet oil, are far from over. And as a result of which, the government, I don't know if you know what the price of natural gas is now. We are really a natural gas economy. Atlantic LNG
Not around
now.
$4?
No, it's $6.75.
Okay,
The other day it was 5 something, and he targeted the natural gas price at $3.65. And every year until this year, he always overpriced the natural gas price. It is now traded at $6.75. And now beside that, the natural gas and all of the cassia sea and manatee and all of these things, they are coming onto production unless prices drop suddenly, which I do not anticipate given what we are seeing. Trinidad is in for a good run with regard to the prices of oil and gas, and the production has increased because all of the companies have woken up and seen that this is not a one-day wonder. There's a company called EOS International Limited. It's an American company. They do not supply any of their natural gas to the LNG. They supply directly to NGC, which is the aggregator. What that really means is that Point Lisa's industrial estate has a far more stable supply of natural gas because all the natural gas from EOS, which is a small company, goes straight to NGC, who then sends it to Point Lisa's. Ammonia, methanol, urea, all those prices have gone through the roof. So if you're asking where Trinidad is in terms of the economy, in terms of the revenue, in terms of fiscal deficit, there's no question, not because of anything this government has done. In fact, this government has, it's not anything this government has done. They have acted as though they are put in a position to hold the fort down, rather than to build an economy, rather they do like Singapore and Mauritius, small economies, tiny, small as Tobago, right? Instead of doing that, you're just holding the force tight, waiting for a recovery, and the recovery is happening. But what I wanted to say on this, he also said the inflation rate in Trinidad right now is 3.6, which I said looks on the face of it not to be bad. But I'm telling you, it is not good because it's caused by, not by demand pull, but by
sluggishness in the economy.
Sluggishness is a phrase they use, sluggishness in the economy, okay? Also, too, when they do the core inflation, which is what they take out the volatile things that maybe the headline inflation is the basket, with transport, shelter, the food that most people will buy, la-di-di-da, and they look at what it was last year and compare. It means every year the value of your money is going down. It is losing value. And guess where it is losing most of its value? For poor people. For poor people. Is in food inflation. Our food inflation is 7.6%. So when they pull out the food inflation out of the headline inflation, that is what the food, and that is poor people who are suffering. And my criticism, and I feel very, 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 very strongly about this, and very strongly about this. I think that the country, and this is my opinion, which is not influenced by anyone except my own observation and having had the opportunity to have been in cabinet. I know some of the players that understand government much better than many of the people who may have insights but have never been sat down in the arena. And my really, really biggest concern is that this government and the UNDP has said that one of the things that for sustainable development is you've got to reduce income inequality, right? You've got to do that. People may not realize it, But that procurement legislation, that gambling legislation, that revenue authority, which required a 3/5 majority until they took out the things that would start. Who are the what is that? Going into projects with the private sector body. Who are the only people who can benefit from that? Only one group of people. And who are going to be the hewers of wood and the carriers of water, right? So then in my respectful view, and I am entitled to my own opinion on it, I believe now that subsidies have changed from really the social focus which it had when you're looking at 2020 vision, which was based on the UNDP 2015 the guidelines for developed nation status. I genuinely believe that there is a group of persons who they continue to support them as subsidies to keep them quiet, to continue to give, to be able to provide that labor. And it hurts me, I'm telling you, because in this country, we import 86% of our food. Should we ever be doing that? 86% of our food. And who own the franchises? Do you understand that all these foreign franchises that they're bringing in? I mean, the most ridiculous one is opposite the hospital. The reason why when I was in government, that's what the Ministry of Health talked about. That's what the minister talked about, non-communicable diseases, high diabetes, diabetes and high blood pressure, etc. And you are having a whole host of these coffee places, these chicken places, these pizza places that we are taking up our US dollars, which I can't get in the bank. I cannot get it. No man can't. They have to make it come around 100 times, and they say, "Oh, sorry, we don't have any money." Right? Bringing in these franchises, and if it is that those franchises led you to a higher employment, a better position, it takes you right there. Dead end, no end jobs. And then these franchise holders have to pay back the owners of the franchise in US dollars. And we are allowing the government to do this. And that procurement legislation, I want someone, actually I'm going to try and bring some people to get them to take that procurement legislation, section 7, for the court to interpret any other agreement, because it is very clear, you wrote an article, it was in the Express. It is very clear that it was not intended to include all of these arrangements with the private sector, who are only feeding on this country, have no real interest in things. You think any of them care about a revenue authority? The only reason a revenue authority was passed, I could talk because I was there, and it was TTRA and Hudson, whatever his name is, March on me and cussed me out in my own boardroom, Watson Dew, right? What is it we were bringing in, which we had the Americans helping us with? Setting up a department where whoever was in that department had to do testing for drugs, testing, polygraphing, and a number of tests, constantly thing, because that is where the corruption was going on. The gambling legislation, up to now, they can't implement the procurement regulation. Don't fall asleep by the time. All they want to know is tell the IMF, they pass it through the legislation. That gambling legislation, which is a source of money laundering, and who is controlling that? And guess what? They cannot. That is why they were able to pass it without a special majority, because you cannot go into a gambling place unless you get a warrant. By the time you go and get that warrant, if I don't let you in, you don't know I already know you come in. I mean, this country, I am going to tell you, I have been in government, and if people do not understand, you see the man in the street, they do not understand that procurement legislation, that gambling legislation, that revenue authority legislation, those special projects with private sector. You know what the government should do if they're so transparent and so accountable? Every single ministry that and by the way, the reason why the private sector stays quiet is because nearly all the construction is public sector. The central bank has said so. The central bank has said all the price of cement gone up, price of steel gone up, everything gone up. And he had the audacity to say construction doing well, when the central bank in their thing said of the 3.5%, 13.5% of the increase in inflation was due to construction. And you had this Glenn Mahabir Singh saying that they will have to leave Trinidad to look for jobs, right? So let me just say to you, and I want to make myself very clear to all of your listeners, right? I have no cocoa in the sun, and I am not in anybody's back pocket. I have the interest of my country. And I am telling you that this thing with the procurement legislation, the gambling legislation, who are the beneficiaries? Let us wake up and smell the coffee. Who are the beneficiaries? We know who they are. And everybody knows, even in the legislation, it had to say so. In the gambling legislation, they had to say it is a mechanism for money laundering. The gambling legislation, they had to water it down. That's why they passed it, you know, because they had to water it down. So I am saying to you that we will go, and the last point on that, and I am saying this without apology, we are not going to fix the problems of this country because there's no trust in either party. And we are not going to fix the problems of the country unless we deal with the cocaine trade. And nobody wants to say the truth because they love to point their fingers at Lavadil and Mova. As I said to a group the other day, I said, so why? Because we know it's mostly Black, Afro, Trinis in the young thing. So it's very easy for them to point to them. I say to them, so why is Tobago not overrun with murderers and crime? Why isn't Togo not overrun with murders and crime? Why is Point Fortin not overrun with murders and crime? Why is Maruga not overrun? Because those are rural communities. And these communities right here on the East-West corridor is the recruitment for the drug lords because they are vulnerable communities. They are vulnerable communities. They take advantage of these children who do not have a proper oversight over them. And therefore they're easy prey. But you know what I say to them? They could never have enough money. They could never have enough cars, never have enough house, never have enough yachts. But the little boy that they like to put their fingers on, Lavadil and Moa, which is now code words for little Black boys, they're quick to point their fingers at them, but they are not the problem. So I am telling you, until a government is willing to deal with the drug trade, not marijuana, but the cocaine, then I will become a believer. And you don't have to go after the what they used to call him, the big fish. You're wasting your time because how many, no offense meant, how many of them who are in charge are sitting at home and going to die before they have their court, their matter heard? How many? We know the people. So don't waste your time. They have deep pockets. They'll spin you around about 20 times before their matter heard. Don't go after them. Disrupt the trade. Did Gary Griffith, and he wants to talk all about himself. Why doesn't he? Why he knows what is at the heart and at the root of our thing is until you root that thing out, you don't stand a chance because you are not going to tell me if I am living in a neighborhood and they come in recruiting me and they want to pay me, I get in a URP or CPEP salary and you're going to pay me $1,000 to take a thing. Am I not going to do it? But you're pretending that's the problem.
In your financial situation, it's an improvement.
And then want to pretend no family. Yes, the fact that these children don't have parents because the mother has to work. Yes, that is a problem. The fact that they don't have, yes, that's what makes them vulnerable. But you are targeting them for those very same reasons, giving them a poor self-image, and none of this, no government is prepared to deal with talking all this talk. They want to talk all the about education and football and all that nonsense. Let them deal with the cocaine trade. Let them deal with that legislation that is not worth the paper it's written on, right? And keeping the zesters and the cockroaches right where they want them. And that is my humble opinion, which I do not think is a wrong opinion on the matter.
I want to tell you, I don't think it's a wrong one either. They keep those people who they call cockroach and this and that right there, because by keeping them there, they use them as an explanation and justification to put a lot of money under certain ministries to say that to spend on this and spend on that. And when they have to spend it on this and that, it's the same people are going to spend the money by. You understand that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only that, forget about the ministries. Why it is that the government, I sent a paper on procurement where it was, let me just tell you about that, because I think a lot of people don't understand this. The procurement legislation was something that came out of a PNM government of 2005. And the reason it came about was because the procurement of goods and services and disposal was handled by central tenders. The Central Tenders Board had very little power. The only thing the Central Tenders Board could do is approve a tender. It was not involved in the design stage. It was not involved in the implementation stage. They were not involved. In other words, there was no monitoring. And many times when you see overruns always, all the time on projects, is because the design is not completed and the charges start adding up. And it's all done deliberately. And
deliberately.
What?
Deliberately, no
it's
accident.
Done deliberately, but this is what I'm saying. Why does the government have a problem? Why does the government have a problem with these things being properly regulated? So my suggestion, if you saw, you love to put out the words accountability, transparency, and then cuss out Kamala and cuss out just want to distract us and things. They don't work with me. What I want, why don't they do this? A simple thing. I should be able to go to, say, Ministry of Works, or let's say Ministry of Housing, and I should be able to see, because it's my money you're spending.
Yeah.
I should be able to see who the contractor is, how much the contract was awarded for, when he was supposed to start, when he was completed, how long it took him to take, and how much it increased. And then when I see a pattern, I say, but how this contractor getting jobs over and over again when you always come in charging much more and never coming in time? What are they? And then we the people can have our eyes on what is going on, but they don't want you to see that.
No, they award a big contract today in general, but they'll take the platform and tell you about every other thing. People going to be charged, people going to jail. So that will make the headlines tomorrow, and the contract they awarded today that they didn't want you to know about, the papers would be none the wiser, the media house.
Yeah, I don't want to say more on that too, because I think I've said enough on it.
No, don't say anymore. Let's back up to some of what you said though. For example, going all the way back to the natural gas. Mr. Manning had said that this economy had become more a gas-based economy than that of oil. Then the fact that it's up and around $6 now, he was correct.
Oh yeah, but no, but that's old story. See, this is the sad thing. The UNC will not want to sing his praises, and for reasons better known, we don't hear too much from the current leadership. But I heard it from Mr. Manning, and I went and did research on my own, because I said, I'm not taking anybody's word for it. I'm going to look into it myself. So the natural gas, the LNG, Mr. Manning was the one, I think he told me that in Africa at the time, the natural gas didn't have an organization at the time like OPEC, where they could set prices and so on.
Right.
And natural gas, I think one of the African countries that produce and would provide natural gas had a problem. So it created an opportunity. So this was not new. Mr. Manning was not the originator of it. It had been floating around for quite a while with a company called Cabot in the United States, a small company. Eventually, he decided to say he's going forward with an LNG plant. The first LNG plant in the Western Hemisphere in 28 years was Train 1, and Mr. Manning signed that contract before he lost the election maybe 2 or 3 months later. But he is the one that recognized the days of our dependency on oil, because we had mature fields and all of that. He saw the potential of natural gas as a cleaner energy, and he was the one. And at one time, I mean, now things are no longer that way, but in the early days, nearly all of America's LNG came from Trinidad for their buses. So he got a lot of, I was told by many people, including his own cabinet ministers and his own technicians, who were very much against him doing that. And he said, no, he's going ahead. And he signed the agreement for starting Train 1. So when we talk about this country is a natural gas economy, and who's responsible for that? It is Mr. Patrick Manning. He's voted out of office. So nothing against Mr. Pandey. Mr. Pandey is the one who was able to see it to fruition, but it certainly was not his idea. He certainly did not sign the agreement, and it is certainly Mr. Manning responsible for us being where we are today, because what we make from oil is a I think it's on average 61,000 barrels, 60,000, and our refinery was built for 140,000 barrels. And even now, the Minister of Energy is talking about reopening refinery. Now, why did you close it down to let it rust and mash up before you had a plan? You know, why you did that? And then on top of that, just to say that, you know, the impression I get, and I may be wrong, I'm subject to being corrected on this, but I've spoken to people who are well placed to know that when they wanted to show you how bad the things were with the refinery point of view, they showed you all the old rusting metals and so on. But there were two parts: the liquid to gas project and the ultra sulfur diesel project, which was a UNC project, and the gas to liquid, which was a PNM project, where they tried to sue what's his name, Mr. Manning, who was the chairman. He has died since then.
Malcolm Jones.
Yes, and they took the UNC when they came in power, took Malcolm Jones to arbitration in London, and it ended up with Malcolm Jones winning. Then the company took Petrotrin to thing, and Petrotrin ended up winning. In other words, Malcolm Jones won, because the argument is unfortunate for them, and it happened during their reign, not under PNM reign, under UNC reign. But what I don't understand is that, from my understanding, is that there are parts of the refinery that are not broken down. That Nikwan project, the gas to liquid, they built it right, from my understanding, where the gas to liquid project was supposed to be. They talk about it being a pile of rust and rubble, and they bought it for 35 million US. But my understanding was that why didn't the government take it over and have a share in it? Now, I guess they might get the gas now, because they will, but up to now they haven't started back. And then the ultra low diesel project, that was a UNC project. That was a UNC project, but the idea behind that was that our oil is heavy. It's heavy and full of sulfur. So the idea, and so is Venezuela oil, full of sulfur and heavy. So the idea was to desulfurize the oil and convert it into diesel oil. And again, yes, there were problems. I think they had partnered with Mitsubishi, I believe. I don't want to get it wrong. But the point is, I can't now all of a sudden you want to go back out to the refinery. And what I found was was not right, was that the Prime Minister said just before elections, when he went to a meeting in some school, I am ready to sign with OWT. I'm ready to sign. Knowing full well, because by that time the SPNA government had been fired, knowing by that time that the Petrotrin had, which is now Trinidad and Tobago Petroleum Company Limited, made up of Paria, which is importing the fuel, Heritage, which is exploration and development, and Guaracara, which is refinery, that the bond covered all, so that in fact, the price that they were saying that the OWTU had to raise in order to be able to buy the refinery, they knew quite a while away from all my reading that they knew quite some time that they couldn't do that because there was an additional bond, and the bondholders were not separating the refinery from Paria or from Heritage. And now the country, look at the mess. I mean, it's just disgraceful. And the last thing I will tell you.
Therefore, what you ask,
yeah. So I don't want to be stuck. I am always very careful in what I say because I rely on but I want to say this other last thing. If this government really is interested in this country, that procurement legislation, somebody should take that to court. They need to look at that gambling legislation. Those are rages with the private sector. So let's see who's getting all those contracts now, and if they're delivering on time, in budget. But also the agro industry, the same way you took the natural gas and added value downstream at the Point Lisas. We can do so much in this country because of the level of sophistication with different chutneys, with our doubles. Look at doubles with our chocolates. There's a whole agro industry, also a cultural tourism. I have written papers on agro industry, where Holland, which is 224 times smaller than the United States, is the second largest producer of food in the world. So size does not matter. Why doesn't the government, and we have a faculty of agriculture, why doesn't the government take the small, medium enterprise and create think it out, create an industry, the agro industry is going to reduce our food bill, put some high VAT on those high-end products. So if you want to eat it, pay the price. You want to if there's something you can't target like rice and sugar, you won't eat it, right? But there are some things, put up the price. You want to eat it, go to specialty stores and you pay the price, you can afford to eat it. You know, that's what to do. Start a proper agro and go to Russia, out to Holland, or invite them here. And with the cultural tourism, they are all over the place. They can't even market it well here. So, and they should involve community development in it. So you can see from what I have said to you that I have think a lot about what can be done. And this government will not deal with the real problem, which is the cocaine trade and who is behind it, and blaming disasters and cockroaches, the little boys in there, when in Tobago they have none. Why don't you have murders and things in Tobago? 98% of the population there is Black. So stop making it about race. It's not said, but it's unnecessary. It's like a code word, making it about race. Why don't you make it about urban versus rural poverty? Why don't you understand what is it that goes on in these communities that they send their recruiters into those communities and get these boys? Why don't you deal with the recruiters? You don't want to touch them, though.
Well, they don't want to deal with the recruiters, and they don't want to address the factory that the recruiters go to get the people from.
And you know, somebody said it yesterday. I went to a meeting where I wouldn't say where, but the person said this. They said we will never, ever get out of the and this is a person who's highly respected, morass that we are in unless we deal with corruption. And let me just tell you something, which is the disheartening thing. Many people who you think give lip service, like the Chamber of Commerce and all that, those are the people who quietly are happy about that because they are the beneficiaries of that. Because the middleman provides them with cheap labor.
Yes. Anything the government needs, apart from the cheap labor that they themselves could get, anything the government needs to address the matter in those communities or the country overall, the government had to go through one of them or some of them.
Yeah, but why give them that power? Because you know, on the corruption perception index for the public sector, do you know that one of the 6 factors is red tape? And I understand why. You know why? I saw a young girl trying to open up a business. Oh my God, they ran around in circles. The doctor is not here today. The person to sign anything not here. They on holiday. Oh my God. I mean, she was in tears. She came to the conclusion, maybe she's supposed to spare some money. She don't know. But guess what? When you're one of the big boys, you say, hey, I need a certificate. Done. And then you struggle for the next 10 months to start up your business, and they're gone ahead of you. So this government, in my respectful view, there may be some who have our interest, but they're keeping quiet because they don't want to lose their job.
Yeah, I think you're right. No, I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Sharon. People who have heard my shows. I don't want to get you in trouble, you know. No, I have done the producer till I've done.
What's that?
These shows before. And today you are corroborating. I have done these shows before.
Okay.
Yeah, the issues you have raised, I have picked them out one by one and have addressed them. So in effect, you are supporting the.
Yeah, but one of the things I think, with all due respect and with all humility, I think that because I was in the cabinet in a very senior position, and CLR, CIB, CLF, property tax, revenue authority, all of those things happened. And then the 2008 global financial crisis, we were bringing an IFC. Lehman Brothers had signed to set up an office in the IFC. Because I went through all of those things, I have an appreciation and an understanding of politics. And I could tell you, there are very few of them who are not there. Some of them are not really necessarily corrupt. I'm not saying they're corrupt, but there are very few of them who do not like the power, the prestige, and are not, because to give it up is to be put into no man's land.
Yeah.
You don't allow callers to call in because I'm sure a few of them would have a few choice words to me. Richard?
Something, Mr. Teshera. Hello?
Richard, I said you don't allow callers to call in.
Yes, I told the producer to open the lines.
Yes, so that they'll have a few choice words to me.
No. Oh,
That's me.
All to yourself. You missed those words, Mr. Teshera. You want it.
Who is laughing there?
That's the producer. Let me open the line. Let me open the lines. 222-8255, 612-8255, and 866-525-1099. We are taking your calls. You can call us at any time. Continue, Mr. Teshera and or Karen and Richard.
Karen, yes, we call me Karen.
Okay.
You know, and I appreciate that you asked me. You didn't jump to that because there's some people who, for some reason, I've never known them in my life. They've never been doing, and all of a sudden, but you know, in politics, you got to take that. But I'm not in politics. I mean, I'm not in formal politics. I give views. You say, "Hey, Karen." And the one that can't take views, me that is the little children. I mean, I can take it from the big people, eh?
Yeah.
But you see the little children calling me Karen, I have a real problem with that one. Unless I say, go ahead.
Yes.
I imagine as a lecturer, that would be a blow to accept. Well, let me say this. The Prime Minister said some time ago, and you remember that, producer, and perhaps if you could pull it up and run it so she could hear for herself. But I'm sure she heard it too. He said, you had to let the rich get richer, and then they in turn would help the poor. I don't know what kind of management approach that is.
That is triple down economy theory of the Chicago boys, led by Friedman, which has proven to be wrong. Wrong has been tested and proven to be wrong.
Okay, I have some callers on the line. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon. I love to listen to very good contributions. One of the things I have to say is that when the PSIP is read, all the development programs is funded and the multilateral lending agencies, they implement projects through contracting services. A contract is based on the latest price 28 days prior to the latest day for the issue of the actual contract. And when prices go up, every contract prices increase proportionately, so that the government is in a situation where if they increase price, the contractors will increase the price based on what the contract is. The other thing I want to say is that when you come to NGC and the sale of gas, the netback price is the price of the gas less the price to process it and to ship it. But the problem is nobody is following the gas along the source to the delivery end.
Yeah.
Where the source is the price listed, but at the delivery it is all kind of $25 and $30. So the amount of money that is lost along the value in delivering is unbelievable. The next thing I want to say is that when government increase the price at the wellhead.
Caller?
Go ahead.
Okay, we seem to have some problems with that call. Mr. Felix, caller, you can call us.
That's true about natural gas. What it is when it leaves here in mid-Atlantic, they then enter into another contract. And so it never ends up being the price it left here at, but it ends up being at a much higher price. So that is something that is, that's part and parcel of natural gas. But what I want the caller to understand, I'm not, the examples I'm giving of increases is often because, and it is in the report, that was done, the white paper report on decriminalization. A lot of times the increases are as a result of the fact that project is sent to the Central Tenders Board at the time where the design is incomplete. And because the design is incomplete, they have to make change orders, and they know that beforehand. So yes, prices can, and there's always something in our contract that allows if the price of steel goes over so and so, it will adjust it. But what I am talking about is the fact that even, which is what the Central Tennis Board could not do, what the procurement regulator could do, he could say, I don't want to see that contract until the design is completed. Because until the design is completed, you're going to ask for change orders. And when there are change orders, the price goes up and it does not finish on time. And that is what not having a monitoring surveillance by a procurement regulator has facilitated over the years.
Okay, we have another caller. Mr. Felix, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Good evening, guys.
Yes, good evening.
Yes.
I have you, and good afternoon to the former Minister of Finance.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I have a few questions. The first one relating to those changes in fuel prices. The first question is, do you think that the timing is right for those price increases? That's one. The second question is, sometimes you feel that the government is giving mixed messages in terms of the economy, because one would think that if you are looking to remove subsidies, one may question what is really the true state of the economy in terms of the government finances and what have you. What is your response to that? And thirdly, in terms of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, isn't it true that there's supposed to be an input of a difference between the prices of oil and the budgeted price inside that Heritage and Stabilization Fund? Because I don't hear the government talking about that much, in that respect.
Right. Okay. So to answer the first question, I don't think there's ever going to be timing is right. But I think if looking at the outlook, which as I've said, there's going to be a substantial increase in revenues, which of course are set back by the barrier importing refined fuel and the fuel subsidy. So I think what the government is doing is testing the waters, pushing the envelope and not pushing it too hard, because I think they recognize that there's so many other things that are not are good. The unemployment rate, the salaries, the retrenchment, all of that I think they're wanting to see how the public responds and then see. With regard to the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, I know they made some amendments to the legislation, and because one would think, but I did not look at it before I came on the show, but one would think that once it reached over the budgeted amount, which was $65, as I remember it, that once it passed that, then a certain percentage of that would go in the HSF. But I do believe they made an amendment that allowed the government to go into the HSF more than 2 times. Before it used to be twice a year. Now it's 4 times a year. And I think they made changes to allow them access to the HSF. So I don't want to answer that definitively, but that was the case, that they had to put it in once it reached over a certain amount. And it's really not allowing, because they kept saying they'll do the heritage component like Norway has, and we have not been able to do that. And with regard to the timing, as I said, it'll probably be, look out for the property tax that's coming next too.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Sister Teshera, good evening. I don't understand why you are only arguing. You
take it as a compliment, huh?
You had to be careful. You can't call her Teshera or Rawi and her agree girl. If she doesn't know you, have to protect her.
Can I tell you, not at all.
Sometimes in the house are 2 people, right?
Not at all.
In the house are 2 people.
What do you want to ask?
Your frankness, man. I like your frankness, and I realize over the years, listening to you know what you're about. You understand? You're not a rule over pushover woman. You understand?
Thank you.
But I want to ask you, how you think the government operate in the second quarter of the budget? The second quarter?
No, but it doesn't. They don't operate in anything. They're just doing what they've done for the last how many years, just hoping for a price of energy and oil to go up, because I have not seen them. The Prime Minister says he doesn't want to hear diversification. I'm tired of the word. Okay, we don't want to hear that word either. You know what we want to see? We want you to reduce your import of food and non-essentials and increase our export of food. Yes.
But Sister Teshera, which government in Trinidad could really do that when the capital is controlled by?
Well, that is what I spoke about. And you know, I will tell you something soon. This is really, and I think this is a view that is shared by many, unfortunately. There is a sense of hopelessness in the country because people feel that 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And what they're looking for is fresh leadership. I think part of the reason why NAR got a chance was because they had no baggage and people felt, we're going to get an opportunity to do things right. I also believe that the reason, and I think that had a lot to do with it. Right now, the one that, in my respectful view, that has the best chance is Farley Davidson. But I'm being honest, and I don't want Watson Duke to say anything against me, but I am entitled to my own opinion. Both parties are carrying a lot of baggage, a lot of people in both parties that make them not trustable, not to trust them. Farley Davidson has not made a misstep as yet. And if he continues, they stand a chance of at least then a coalition. I think is something that we should prepare ourselves for. But Farley Davidson is the person.
I don't say one waist and 2 foot test. I got it that one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Patrick. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, listen to what I just said. NGC is the aggregator of gas. So when government increased the price at the wellhead due to non-discriminatory contracts, NGC pays back the increase in price to the suppliers of the gas.
Yeah.
And it is no benefit to the government to increase the price because the money is paid back to the upstreamers. So I wanted to add that to the conversation. The other thing is people in NGC are highly rewarded, $100,000 salaries with European cars and all kind of perks and benefits in a time when the kind of money that the industry is generating is not proportionate to the level of rewards and services they are providing. And somebody have to look at all of that very, very, very keenly because it's happening across all sectors, all over the place with massive salaries to people who have not been contributing proportionately to what the industry is doing. And thanks a lot.
I don't want to go into that part because unfortunately, when a European or a foreigner comes here and calls his salary and wants to live in St. Clair and have a driver and thing, we don't seem to have the same amount of difficulty as opposed to a local person. Whether a local person should consider loyalty or well, I don't want to go into that. But with your NGC issue, I know you can recall that the Prime Minister went to Texas with the now Minister of Energy to negotiate a new price for gas, and he came back very happy. But it wasn't a happy thing because the persons who benefited from that were the upstream industry, the LNG, because they were demanding a higher price. But the NGC, who was the aggregator for the Lisa's Industrial Estate, a lot of them closed their business, yes, because ammonia, natural gas, and so on, prices were become deflated because of coronavirus, etc. But it also, they've said it over and over again, it was affected deeply by the price of natural gas that the government, who would not disclose it, had negotiated in Texas. That had a terrible effect. And in fact, just in case people don't know it, even within that shortage of gas that these companies, Lisa's Industrial, which need gas, even then they were taking what they call 20% of the minister's share, formed a company, and after they formed the company, they then gave that gas not to NGC but to Nikwan, the gas to liquid project, which couldn't operate without gas. So what I would say is, when it comes to NGC, they're not price makers, they're price takers. And clearly what they allowed for Trinidad in the years gone by did not work out for us. But maybe a new dawn is coming, and maybe since Biden calls Maduro president, we might still have the Dragon Field operation, which will be excellent for the country, as well as a Lauren Manatee project.
Mr. Felix, I see you're back with us.
Yeah, I am back because, good afternoon again. I'm back because one of my questions was not responded to. And I was basically asking to the former finance minister in terms of, does she think that the current government is giving a true picture of the economy? And I'm saying that in light of, especially on the revenue side, I'm saying that in light of the fact that the government, of course, is gradually removing subsidies. As she mentioned, also property taxes on the horizon, and also even with the current wage negotiation with public sector unions, the government is offering 0% over 2, 3 years, 6 years, 5 years, and so on. So, do you think that the government is really painting a true picture of the economy?
Okay, to answer that simply, the Minister of Finance, who has been the Minister of Finance since his government has been there, has always painted an extremely positive Alice in Wonderland picture, and every single year, this might be the first year he can truly say it, every single year he has gotten his numbers wrong. Every single year, I took a note of it. I mean, the fiscal deficit in the first year was beyond ridiculous, the difference. So he blamed it on the fact that the deals to get to sell the CLICO assets, CLF assets hadn't gone through. Every single year, and that is because he always either overstated the price of oil and gas and definitely overstated the production level. So he will continue to do that and distract us with all the good news about how much more money and the fiscal deficit and has been narrowed and through the government's good management. He's going to say all of that nonsense when in fact our foreign exchange reserves, that's our corruption perception index, 41 out of 100. When you go under 50, they say you're corrupt, right? That's public sector. They say that you're corrupt. Then when you look at our foreign exchange reserves, you realize that in 2014, it was 11 point something billion. Now it's 6.9 billion, or 6.8, 6.9. And you know what is made up of? Bond issues, debt, drawing down from the HSF more than once, and the special drawing rights. So if you really looked at how much of our foreign exchange reserves is caused by export, you will cut that figure in half. So is that good? Our unemployment level, we cannot get a good picture. The central bank cannot give you a good picture of what is the real unemployment or underemployment. But he is going to sell a rosy picture. That is what governments try to do because they are concerned about winning an election and keeping their people happy. And that's what he's going to do. But it's absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not the National Statistical Institute. How many times they promised that? Nothing happened. The Sanders, and they never take responsibility. The Sanders didn't come through because all those people against the thing, and we couldn't put it. We couldn't put it together. The Dragon Field thing. Well, it's true. Shall have to pull out because Trump was going to blacklist them for building the pipeline, right? But everything they promised, what has happened? What industry have they started? What have they spent on agro industries? What have they spent on cultural tourism? What have they done on the IFC? What have they done on our food import bill? 86, and who it is importing all this food? And who it is owning all these franchises? We know who they are. And who are they employing? The little boy, the little zesters and cockroaches. And to keep them quiet, give them a thing. That is what it is. And we have to wake up and smell the coffee. And I don't mean the coffee that they import.
Richard.
All right, 222-8255, 222-8255. Listen, it's wonderful listening to Mr. Sheridan.
I tell you.
Yeah. I really am enjoying it.
You want to be my security after this?
I may have to sign up for that job because it could be in a spot of butter. Yeah, it could be, but you know what? I too need some protection, you know. I'm in another organization and I understand the fire and attack at me, you know.
Yeah, but you see, why they will go after me is because I was Minister of Finance. So they can't say she's talking nonsense. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Clearly,
They can't
because you can
dismiss me.
speak from a position of being informed. Because
Hopefully.
you were there. Yeah.
And
but
I
they
hold
don't
no
understand it.
prisoners.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, you see, I think the difference I would like to think is because I love my country. All my brothers and sisters went abroad to study, you know. After my father was sending me in England to go and do law, I begged him to allow me to go to a de facto law in Barbados because I did not want to leave the Caribbean. My whole life has been about my country, Trinidad and Tobago. So when I see these things happening, I have a passion for it. A holy passion will get me too much trouble because the family tell me, Karen, you need to look out. But I say nothing that is not reported. And you know, Richard, it's 6:04. And I told Richard, Paul Richard, is he around?
No, Paul Richards is around right now.
That I find bad.
No, but he's listening. He's listening.
He's listening, but we agreed a certain time. And I've given a lot of my energy to the discussion, and I'm very happy to come another day, but I really do try to be responsible. And the way I do that is by doing my research. I don't just come here. I feel responsible that when I say something, that I am being responsible to the national community.
I have a caller standing by here. Final call.
Okay, the final call. All right.
Okay. Caller?
Mr. Sarah, good evening to you.
Good evening to you too.
Okay, one quick question. Do you think it was a great decision to shut down that petroleum refinery?
Well, you know, but I will say this, you know, hindsight is 2020. What I will say is the fact that it has remained closed for how many years and therefore collecting rust, and for whoever finally, if ever, becomes interested in it, they have a long haul in terms of expenditure. The good thing on the, so I don't agree that they should have shut it down completely. I think there were other reasons that informed that decision, and I think a lot of the people in Trinidad thought that the Prime Minister was bold and courageous, and in truth, a lot of people got a lot of respect for doing that. But to close down the refinery in the way that he has done it, and the passage of time, it appears to me not to have been a well thought out decision, and that his former board, SVNA, etc., did not share his view. And I think there were other considerations, and I want to see who are going to be the persons. That's what y'all have to look out for, you know, with this procurement legislation. Who is going to be buying up the assets in down in Point-de-Paix, and who buying everything, and also too, why is it in this their virtual thing where everybody on a computer, just like you and me right now? I don't know where you are, but I think you're in a decent place. I don't know if I can say that about Paul Richard because I haven't seen his face. But what I know is this: that a lot of them sit down, and guess what? Collecting rent and doing nothing. And that is why they never wanted the big building, because they want to continue to live off the fat of this land, of this country, and this government, I am sorry, has to take some responsibility for the status. Why are we renting out all these buildings and then retrofitting it? And they're just sitting down there renting to different ministries. They need to cut that out. That's what they need to start doing. And then people will trust them.
The government plaza in town to house
ministries. And you know something, I really have to say this, you know, because I mean, I knew what he was thinking of, and I can tell you, I have the greatest regard for that man. And I think he did not tell me this, but I have a feeling he was getting ready to leave active government and go into his new life. And I felt he wanted to leave as a statesman and with a good record. And one of the things he understood and was doing, he told me this once too. He said, you know, you don't allow the drugs to get on land, you know, because you're making jobs to other people too. You create a Chinese wall and makes it unattractive to come here and therefore now we go somewhere else. So he was doing a number of things. And one of the things which they did not like was his big building store, because what it meant, they understood that he was not going to be renting from them all those buildings. He would, and giving the people of this country equity in their own country, instead of paying this rent and just sitting down there collecting rents. Another thing he did with the Revenue Authority, which was under my ministry, the FIU, we were bringing in a foreigner to head up the FIU because we were confident that the only way that an FIU could work in Trinidad, that no Trinidadian or Caribbean person could head up that FIU. And there will be people who may or may not have been in the cabinet, who may or may not have had access to what he was doing piece by piece. I started seeing the pattern. The gambling legislation, he was shutting it down. You want to know why you want a commission? We so corrupt in this country. You're going to create another institution to another ways to facilitate another level of corruption in this country. He was shutting down the gambling. He was the Revenue Authority. He was creating a situation with the help of the United States to be able to fire and hire. He was dealing with the OPVs. He was dealing with the FIU, which much of it. So the message was, and he was big buildings. He was owning our own equity. And that picture was a picture that was being sent out that they did not like. And that is why he has my eternal respect. And that is why I have remained loyal to Mr. Manning up to today.
And he was also purchasing the 4 Augusta Westland choppers to work with the OPVs.
Yeah. So let's find out who buys up all these things that the government have on the Procurement Act. Somebody needs to take that legislation to court and let the court define what or any other agreement means in Section 7.2 and see if it is defeating the entire purpose of the legislation.
Mr. Chair, I wouldn't ask if any closing words.
Okay,
I'll just ask you for your last comment as you leave.
Oh gosh, I enjoyed it.
Yes.
I don't know how much you enjoyed it or your
No, fully. Come on, if not, I'd have been interjecting myself into the process. I would have, but I didn't because I was enjoying what I was hearing.
Oh my
They did a fantastic job, yeah. There was no need for intervention by me.
But, all right, I love my country. I love my people. And I at a stage in my life where thankfully I don't have to go copper begging for a job, or position. Thank God. God has protected me from that, I think. And I feel like they say, I may not be a good man or woman, but when a good man does nothing, evil prospers. So I'm not putting myself as a good man. But what I'm trying to say is that when we sit by and are not willing to voice and take a position to educate people who need to be educated, then we are doing our country a disservice. And I want the possessors and the cockroaches not to let anybody take away your self-worth, not anybody take away your self-esteem, not anybody to use you, and see how much this government has put on small and medium enterprises to allow them to prosper, to allow them to be to really come to fruition. And with those words, thank you for having me. And Richard, Paul Richard, you could hear me?
Yes, he's listening.
You can hear me? All right. So I always like a little feedback, huh?
No, he's not on the set, but he'll be listening to the radio.
I know. I was saying there's something called WhatsApp, you know? All right, I'm gone. Goodbye to your viewers, goodbye to your listeners.
It's been a pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of the day. It was really a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And we will come back to you again to share. We will come back to you again. I
understand I'm on a Monday and
yes.
maybe we need to get secured. Yes, he didn't tell you.
Well, yes.
Paul Richard didn't tell you.
Paul Richards. I want to thank Paul Richards.
Tap him for me. Okay, I'm gone. I'm making enough mischief. I'm gone.
Thank you so much. Yes, Richard.
All right.
Oh boy. Fantastic.
You know, she speaks about educating the people, which is what we do here.
All the time.
Calling it as it is. And